I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here we talk about true crime and psychology. Thank you so much for joining. Let's hop right into today's topic. Let's go. Welcome. We have a verdict in the Karmelo Anthony case. I will be getting to that. I first want to talk about some of my initial thoughts on this case. One of the most difficult things is that cameras were not allowed into the courtroom. And because of that, we are relying on reporting. There is a reporter that was using quotes. So, I want to say JD Miles. Yes, JD Miles from CBS News. He has the jury instructions, he has quotes of testimony. He provided very thorough coverage of this. Court TV also had Cody. So Cody is one of their correspondents, and he also provided really good updates on this case. No matter what, I don't think anyone was going to be happy. No matter what. We'll get to the verdict a little bit later. Going into this, I wasn't on one side or the other. I ran track in high school, and no matter middle school and high school. And we would have track meets where sometimes it might start raining. And if it did start raining, there were options. We'd often talk to our coach, and our coach sometimes we would get permission to be able to go into a school, or we would figure out what we needed to do. Sometimes our bus would still be on location. Sometimes a team mom would have a tent. And then I did know and was like not friends, but I would say I was associates with people on other teams, and we would sometimes talk. We were cordial with one another, even though we were competitors. And it's not like football or basketball where there's often a rivalry and people don't talk. Track and field, in my experience, now I don't know what it's like in Texas, but my experience in Germany and then also in Virginia was that it was a very cordial atmosphere. I think the defense didn't do a great I don't know. The defense worked with the evidence that they had, and we may never know why certain things weren't discussed and why certain things didn't come into the trial. Everybody I saw cover the case, once the state rested and the defense rested, there were still questions of why did Karmelo have the knife, even though an officer got on the stand and said that it wasn't illegal. Now, it was against school policy to have a knife, but it wasn't illegal. All of the student witnesses seem to, at minimum, not think that anybody, when the argument or the back and forth started, nobody thought it was going to lead to a fight. And I think it was Cody and Josh from Courtroom Confidential. They talked about how nobody pulled out phones. So it's like that in Virginia, where if there's a big argument, if kids are like, ooh, if they know a fight is about to start, sometimes people will pull out phones. As a therapist, I do not like that. I think that causes major issues. I think major things can come up. But I think that with this particular case, I think there were a lot of unanswered questions. In some of the evidence that came up, I wondered if the jury would have thought that Karmelo, like, he wasn't intending for Austin to die, that the situation escalated, there was a reaction, and that and that he was pretty distraught. So everybody described him as very emotional after. And so there were so many questions. He decided to not take the stand. I personally think, I do not know this to be true for sure. The state did not call Hunter Austin's twin brother. The state did not call him in their case in chief. And I think they were saving whatever Karmelo said, if he did decide to testify, I think the state was gonna call Hunter versus recalling a witness that had already testified. And thinking back to other self-defense trials, I think the fact that in the Koenig trial, Gerhard Koenig, he was able to hear his ex-wife's testimony first, and then I don't know this for sure, like, it's just all speculation on my part. He had a story that can I don't know, like, he said what he said, and the state did not recall Ariel. They did not put her back on the stand. In this situation, the state did not call Hunter at all. Sorry, I think, yeah, Hunter, Austin's brother. And I just personally felt that they were saving him just in case um, Karmelo did decide to testify. I think they would have called Hunter for the rebuttal. And it's sad. So the jury instructions, let me pull those up real quick because as I mentioned, JD Miles, he has an X account and over there, call it Twitter, call it whatever you like. He was providing very thorough updates. Um, I think the punishment phase has been paused after one witness, Carmelo Anthony's mother. Oh, okay. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So there we go. All right. So after the verdict, they've already started the punishment phase. The jury is currently deciding Carmelo's punishment right now. They are currently doing that right now as we speak. I think they were going to take a break, but let me just pull up and read some of the jury instructions. And this is the state of Texas versus Carmelo Anthony. The defendant stands charged by indictment with the offense of redrum, alleged to have been committed on or about April 2nd, 2025 in Collin County, Texas. To this charge, the defendant has pleaded not guilty. The law requires that I submit the following instructions to you in this case. These instructions contain all the law necessary to enable you to reach a verdict. If any evidence was presented to raise an issue, the law on that issue must be provided. You are to read the instructions as a whole. The law applicable to this case is as follows. So they start out with presumptions and burden of proof. I'm going to skip that part. Please feel free to go out to his X account to read that. They define redrum, and we know why, because of YouTube, why I have to say this. Now, bearing in mind the following instructions, if you find from the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that on or about April 2025 in Collin County, Texas, the defendant, Carmelo Sincere Anthony, did intentionally or knowingly cause the death of an individual, namely Austin Metcalf, by, and so there's a word that YouTube doesn't like, with a knife, a deadly weapon, or with the intent to cause bodily injury to Austin Metcalf, an individual did commit an act clearly dangerous to human life by, there's a STABBING. That's a way around the algorithm. As if the algorithm can't spell, but that's a whole other conversation. Austin Metcalf with a knife, a deadly weapon that caused the death of Austin Metcalf. Then you will find the defendant committed redrum as charged in the indictment. If you do, let me see. If you do not so believe, or if you have reasonable doubt thereof, you will next consider whether he committed the lesser included charge of manslaughter. And there was mental state definition as to manslaughter. A person acts recklessly or is reckless with respect to the result of his conduct when he is aware of but consciously disregards a substantial unjustifiable risk that the result will occur. The risk must be of such a nature and degree that its disregard constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of care that an ordinary person would exercise under all the circumstances as viewed from the actor's standpoint. So that was mental state definition for manslaughter. So then under the definition for manslaughter, we have the date of the offense. Did recklessly cause the death of an individual, namely Austin Metcalf, by that word with a deadly weapon, then you will find the defendant committed manslaughter. And so if you do so believe, or no, if you do not so believe, I hate those words. They word stuff weird in legal briefs. If you do not so believe, or if you have reasonable doubt, you will acquit the defendant and by your verdict. So they have not guilty. They also provided definitions of bodily injury, the weapon, individual, serious bodily injury, and then mental state offense definitions. And then let's see, there was a self defense, and the defense objected to a part of this self defense instruction. And so that could be held up on appeal, but we'll see what happens. You are instructed that a person is justified in using force against another when and to the degree he reasonably believes that the force is eminently necessary to protect himself against the other's use or attempted use of unlawful force. The use of this force against another is not justified in response to verbal provocation alone, or if the actor provoked the other's use of or attempted use of unlawful force, unless the actors unless the actor abandons the encounter or clearly communicates to the other his intent to do so reasonably, believing he cannot safely abandon the encounter, and the nevertheless, oh good gosh, this is convoluted, continues or attempts to use unlawful force against the actor. Okay. So the self defense instruction goes on a little bit more. So Karmelo was convicted of redrum. So the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. There was notification that the jury has a verdict because they just had closing arguments and jury instructions this morning. The defense rested yesterday. And wow. I was thinking that the jury might convict of manslaughter. I wasn't sure, but the other students, even witnesses called by the defense, indicated that there was not, like, they didn't think a fight was about to break out. Did not fear for anyone's safety. The incident seemed to come out of nowhere, and it's kind of surprised everybody. And most of them also said that they felt that Karmelo was the one that provoked. And I wonder if the provoking was him not leaving. That when Austin Metcalf asked him to leave his team's tent, and Karmelo refused to leave, and different students had different accounts of what happened in there. Was it a tap? Was it a shove? Was it a push? And I've heard other lawyers talk about with self-defense, the force is normally the same. So if somebody pushes you and you push them back, that the person that pushes back wouldn't be charged with assault. If somebody hits you and you hit them back, but if somebody hits you and you pew them, that might become a question of, was that justifiable force for a reasonable person? And self-defense is a defense. And that is where a lot of times it kind of, so I'll tell y'all a personal difference. So my husband is big. He tells our son, if somebody hits you, you hit them back. And my thing to our son is, if somebody hits you and if you can safely get away, safely get away. Now, if somebody is wailing, like, if you're like, yes, defend yourself, but also know how to walk away and get help. because in school systems, even if if somebody hits my child and my child hits him back, normally both children are going to be suspended. Virginia is a zero tolerance place. And I personally have seen like discipline not always be applied equally across all situations, all individuals. Sometimes if the teacher likes a student a little bit more, or depending on what people saw, what happened, the witnesses, if they do have student witnesses or anything, I've just seen those situations go a different way. And so an important thing, because y'all know we are here to learn, laugh, and grow. So, a big thing for me is teaching students emotion regulation. Emotion regulation is the ability to manage myself and when my amygdala gets triggered. So, if my son is in an unsafe situation and he feels, like if he feels threatened, feelings aren't always facts. And I'm talking in general. I'm not speaking directly to this situation, because what can happen is my child might overreact in a situation based on a feeling, and then that might cause issues. That might just bring up other things. So I always want, because sometimes there can be these immediate reactions. I want my child to respond in situations and be vigilant and not be hypervigilance. Hypervigilance, it can be a trauma response, it can be a stress response. It doesn't always make us safer. Sometimes it can make a person misinterpret cues. I was surprised that we didn't learn more about Carmelo's history, or I don't and I didn't because I don't think a lot of information. I think information about him being a good student came in, but there was a lot of information that I think didn't come into this trial. Um and Oh, wow. Somebody mentioned that the judge doesn't have to follow the jury recommendation with sentencing. I believe he's facing 5 to 99 years. That's based on what I saw on court TV. I don't know if that is true. Conflict resolution. Yes. So emotion regulation and conflict resolution. I believe it starts in elementary school. Okay. So it doesn't start in high school. I think those things should start in very, very early on. Yes, they did mention that he had a 3.8 grade point average. He did multiple sports. And let me see. Do you think there was something going on with him that day, Carmelo? So I don't, I've heard mixed reporting. So because we couldn't hear all of the testimony, I don't know if it's just a rumor that he was disqualified that day, because there are a lot of questions of, was Carmelo participating in the track meet that day? And I did have friends that sometimes, even if they couldn't participate, they would still go to support the team. And because they would be there for support, even if they were injured, or if they were for academic reasons, or for whatever reason they weren't eligible to participate, they would still often go to the meet. So there were questions about that. There were also allegations that there might have been prior arguments between Carmelo and Austin. We don't know. So to me, I'm left with more questions than answers. Uh, Once the verdict was rendered, the state decided to not give a opening argument for sentencing, and the defense also elected to not give a statement for sentencing. And the defense only called Carmelo's mother. And Carmelo's mother got on the stand. And it's my understanding, based on coverage, that she talked about him being her firstborn, just talking about, this isn't, pretty much like this. Let me see if I can find exactly what she said. He'll always be my baby. I love him very much. He was asked, "Does your son regret what he did?" And she said, "Yes, he's very sorry for what he did." And um, and then the defense rested. And so I was surprised that more people, I don't know, like, I was just surprised that there wasn't more that went into that. I don't know if they did any type of pre-sentencing report, because sometimes that would be included in a recommendation. They went straight into sentencing. Um, Mary asked a question, "Do you agree life is all about our choices?" And, I think there are things that can impact choices where I, as a therapist or psychologist, it helps me understand someone's behavior, but they still might be held responsible. I do think it'll be interesting to see what happens to this on appeal, because there were 3 potential African American jurors that were included in the jury pool, and the prosecution struck all 3 of them, and they said it was because they were educators. I think an appellate attorney is going to possibly look at that. I believe there were 3 individuals. So there were 3 individuals of a different race, at least 3. But there were no African American jurors on the jury, and there were some that were in the potential jury pool. And the state decided um, to what's the word? I'm not a lawyer. They cut those jurors that could become an appellate issue. I So a lot of people that are supporting Carmelo 100%, I don't think they're completely acknowledging that there was a different way to handle that situation, and that it went too far. So if somebody pushes you, you don't pull out a knife. Like, that's too much. I think Carmelo's family likely felt that he feared for his life, and that's where, once again, feelings and facts. Um, Now, there are things that can definitely influence that. There are experiences that people can have that can definitely influence that. But that's where you navigate those things in a different way. So another experience from when I was running track and field, there I grew up in one particular county, and a close county is Pocosin. And in Pocosin, they still have an active KKK. And we were told, so this was back in the late 90s. I don't know if, when track meets are held in Pocosin, if they still do this, but we were told, when you go to the bathroom, bring a white bring somebody else with you. Don't go to the bathroom by yourself. When I went to Virginia Tech, we were told, if you go to the game at West Virginia, we can't protect you. Like, the grannies, they call people names, they throw bottles at people. Like, if you go to that stadium, we can't guarantee your protection. That was in the early 2000s. I don't know how things are now. And so somebody's fear might be justified, but that's when you navigate things in a different way. So, if I when I was in Pocosin, if somebody came up and was threatening towards me, I already had my safety plan of my teammate that was there with me. Um, we only had so I think I only had meets there twice, my 3 years that I was there, because we would go back and forth between the meet being at our school and the meet being in Pocosin. But we were no lie told, like, you might be called, like this might not be a safe situation for you, so you have to navigate it in a different way. And it's sad that we had to do that, but that was something that we had to do. My goal for my child is always that he comes home safe, and then also that he's not doing anything, because the jury found that the use of force was not justified. I wouldn't have been surprised if they had found him guilty of manslaughter. If I was on the jury, I might have tried to see if people would have come down. Um, but with the jury instruction for the top of the offense, all you had to want to do was create like bodily injury. There wasn't that malice that I remember in the jury instructions for Rick Chow or for other things that we've read. And so it's going to be tough. I hope everybody is safe in the community because no matter what, I don't think anybody should be getting threats. So I don't think Carmelo's family should be getting any type of threats. I don't think Austin's family or anybody supporting either side. I don't believe that there should be any type of violence. Court TV had the live feed going, and there was a lot of commotion outside. I'm trying to see if there is any update on sentencing. Let me know in the chat if y'all have seen any updates on sentencing. I I think they might still be on break. So this video might not be able to include that. Um uh yes. And I would feel so to me there were other situations where I think there were racial components that were definitely there. Um, Somebody wondered if Carmelo might have been bullied, but even his friends, so the people that the defense called on his behalf, they said, yes, Austin might have pushed him. Um, And that's where I think some people can get confused with self-defense and think if you touch me, that gives me the right to do what I don't know, because you can't, you just can't do that. Me and my computer today, I'm gonna have to take my computer to the Apple store because one of my ports are not working. So one of my ports just decided to not work. So my external camera decided to call it quits. It did that during my last video too, but I figured out how to figure that out faster this time. Oh, okay. So somebody mentioned JD Miles hasn't reported anything. So I think they were going to take like a break. And then I think the jury was going to deliberate. I think the judge still has to give them some instructions. I don't know if the judge has already done that. Oh, so EDB has a much more intricate and advanced setup than I do, I am sure. Technology has been doing the technology today. Thank y'all so much for being here. I'm a licensed psychologist and I like talking about these things from a mental health perspective. There are some cases where I definitely thought race was a factor, that there definitely was something. This is a situation, I think it's been made more complex. Um, and I don't know Carmelo's experience. I know that nothing came into the trial before the jury that gave them a better understanding of why he was in fear for his life. Because the witnesses called by the defense, all of them said that ultimately Carmelo was the one that, that it was kind of provoking things. That even if Austin started it, and so I don't know how you don't consider that. Oh, wow. Her computer crashed. Oh, no. Oh, no. That is not fun. Not fun at all. Yes, and so I was glad I learned earlier that if my mic goes out, because I have my mic and my camera are 2 different ports. The camera port is good, the other port is not great. Was it a public defender? I thought they had a private attorney. I know his family raised quite a bit of money for his defense. I thought I thought he had a private attorney. Um, I'm seeing Carmelo's lawyer asked if he could take his client somewhere to pull himself together. The judge responded, Carmelo has been found guilty, is now in the custody of the sheriff's department. Yep, they just do. Things move differently now. So I do believe that So once the verdict was read, I believe Carmelo's mother actually had to leave and nobody, like, the judge didn't say anything. So I think she got up because normally in the middle of court, you normally just don't. But I think they understood, and so she got up and walked out. And it's my understanding that Carmelo became very emotional during that time. Um, yeah, so I could have sworn um, that the defender was something else. And all right. I saw a video by Court TV or maybe it was Long Crime. It was either Long Crime or Court TV that alleged that the money raised by the GoFundMe was used for housing. Um, that's something that I saw on Court TV. But, um, even with a public defender, I would have expected more, and I don't know if I wish we could have heard the judge, because sometimes when the defendant decides to testify or not, the judge does a soliloquy, like, they ask them questions. I would have loved to have heard that. It's so difficult that this was not covered publicly. Somebody's mentioning that his attorney volunteered, so it is a private attorney that volunteered to take the case. I do not know. I don't know. I know there were a lot of lawyers that were confused by some of the decisions made. Each trial attorney makes their decisions, and this was a colloquy. See, I said soliloquy. Is that like a song? Soliloquy is probably something else. Me and names, me and specific words. Not always great. All right. All right. And so I'll be keeping an eye out on the sentence. This is likely my last video on this one. Y'all can put any questions y'all have in the regular comments of the video if y'all have any additional questions. I think the state put on 21 witnesses, and just because the defense only put on, I think, 6 or 7 witnesses, that doesn't always mean that their defense was or wasn't as strong. If the claim was self-defense, I thought you almost always hear from the defendant. Like, I would want to hear from them what happened. And I just I if any of the jurors, and the jurors are probably not gonna give interviews. I would not be surprised if jurors in this case, because there are there's support for Carmelo Anthony outside the courthouse right now, and I don't think, like, there's multiple police officers. If you watch the court TV feed, you can see all of that there. Um, but this is a lot. So make sure to be kind, don't do crimes, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one. So this Saturday, because I have a video that'll be live tomorrow. I forget which one it is. I think it might be the Virginia nurse. And then there's a video that'll be live on Saturday. Kathy and I are going to pre-record a video about Daisy Link. But and once that video airs, I'll be able to stream it to my channel as well. And I might do that live where I can answer questions if you all have any. So we will have that coming up. I'll be taking a few days off from streaming coming up, but I'll have more information about that down the road. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Hype if you like this content. I appreciate you all. I will see you all next time. Have a good one. Bye.